Hi, I'm Sam Edelston, and today I'd like to talk to you about power chords, but not this kind. You can play a lot of kinds of chords on a dulcimer. Now, as you probably know, major or minor chord consists of the first, third, and fifth notes in a major or minor scale. But if you leave out the third and only play the root and the fifth, you get something ambiguous that can serve as either a major or a minor chord, or just be something different on its own. We often call these power chords. Now, on a guitar in standard tuning, people often play these on just 2 or 3 strings rather than covering all 6. But enough about them. Let's talk about dulcimers. So here I have a dulcimer that's tuned DAD 158. And I want to point out that in between the first and second frets, I've got a 1.5 fret. And that's going to be necessary in just a moment. First, I'm going to play a major chord. I'll play a D major chord using the second fret, which is an F sharp. And for comparison, a D minor chord, this is using the 1.5 fret. Because the 1.5 fret, that's the only place that I have an F natural on this dulcimer. And now I'm going to strum straight across just on the open strings, and that's a D5 or a D power chord. And these power chords work at any fret because the tuning is a 158 tuning. So on the first fret it's E, on the 1.5 fret it's F, on the second fret it's F sharp, and G on the third fret, and so forth. And this will work equally well on a fully chromatic dulcimer. I want you also to notice, please, that I'm using my fingertips. Usually it's going to be the pinky and the middle finger, and in between is going to be the ring finger, falls naturally on the middle string. So you can see that in the camera there. I use the fingertips because it gives very strong support to those fingers compared to if I were to use my pinky or even my index finger across the strings. This is just firmer, and it also gives my other fingers, my thumb and index finger in particular, great flexibility. There are a lot of classic rock guitar riffs, so to speak, that really are just straight across power chords. For example, Black Sabbath has been in the news recently, so here's the riff from Iron Man. Now that may sound a little thin on this acoustic, more or less traditional dulcimer, but if I had one that was plugged in with a pedal board, nice amp, it rocks. Another example, and I've used this example in a previous video in this series, is Locomotive Breath by Jethro Tull. Now the cool thing about Locomotive Breath is you can play the power chords on just the 2 bottom strings while you play the melody above them on the high string, and that would come out something like this. And so forth, and the whole song works that way. I want you to also notice that when you have the 5th note on the middle string and you've got a whole step above it, another fret, you can rock back and forth between that 5th and the 6th note in the scale. So for example here, and it's great for blues, or you speed it up a little bit and you get the backbeat from a song like Johnny Be Good or so much other Chuck Berry, so much other great 50s music. Get down in Louisiana, close to New Orleans, and the whole song again works that way. Now, There's a second power chord shape as well, which is so-called the 101 shape, using the first fret on the two outside strings, so it looks and sounds like this. Dulcimer players will recognize this as an A chord. The notes are E, A, and E. You don't have this at all frets, but you do have it any place where there's a whole step between two frets. For example, between the nut and the first fret, between the first and second frets, between the 1.5 and the third fret. You don't have it between the second and third frets because that's only a half step space. But when you've got that second power chord shape also in the neighborhood, you can mix that shape together with the straight across chords. And so, for example, The Twist by Chubby Checker. Now, I took a little deep dive into this song a couple of years ago, and I watched a live video of Chubby Checker and his band, and I was studying in particular what the guitarist was doing, how he was voicing his chords. And when he went from the 1 chord to the 4 chord, he didn't go up here. He stayed in the same neighborhood with an A chord right down at the bottom of, well, that what would be the equivalent of me being at the bottom of the fretboard. So his verse would have been like this. I'll just sing the chord names. E, 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 A, 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 E, 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 B, A, 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 E. So when you have only 3 strings, power chords are foundational. You can use them on their own for hard-edged accompaniment, or you can fancy them up with variations, or you can play a 2-note power chord underneath a melody that you play on the top string. I'll talk plenty more about chords in future videos, but for now, if you like what you see, please subscribe to me on YouTube or follow me on Facebook or Instagram. And keep on rocking till next time.